Hello everybody, it's me, GhostCritic, and welcome to the collection. This is new semi-regular video uploads I'll be doing, showing off my collection within all my many long boxes strewn around my flat. There is a strange compulsion with many comic book collectors that we get hooked on a comic book series, and much like Pokemon, we gotta have them all. So we go and hunt through charity shops, comic marts, bookshops, antique stores. We'll look anywhere trying to find those elusive issues to fill in gaps to make our runs complete. It's an addiction. So I'm picking for my first run, and I couldn't do it all because the video would just be hours long, so I'm gonna break this up. But the very first collection that I stupidly said to myself, I want to get all of these, if not as many as possible, was the Fantastic Four. Great first family of comics, came out back in the 60s. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby doing some fine 60s work. So in this video I'm only going to show you, and it's a lot smaller than the rest of the collection, just merely because 60s and 70s are quite pricey for Fantastic Four comics. But yes, I'm just going to show you my comic collection that has the 60s and 70s issues of the Fantastic Four. Give you some little nuggets of information as we go along and show you all the covers. Hope you enjoy this. If you're a big fan of kind of like the Silver and Bronze Age of comics, this should be right up your alley. So let's have a look. And welcome to Fantastic Four, the 60s. The 60s obviously belong to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. We had Stan writing our first family of comics, with Jack as the penciler and the cover artist for a lot of what happened in the 60s. This is issue 37. This is my earliest copy that I have. It's beat up to hell. You probably can see it's been sellotaped back together here. There's lines all over the place. I can't remember how much I paid for this, but it was a pittance. But you know, when you see early, very early Fantastic Four, whatever condition, as long as it's roughly in kind of everything's together, regardless whether it's been sellotaped or not, as long as all the pages are there, I'm gonna get it. For all you first kind of appearance nuts, and you're gonna have to look this up, but this is the first appearance of a race called the Druffs, and we've got the Fantastic Four heading off to the Skrull throne room, one of the more enduring villains of the Fantastic Four. Moving on to issue number 41, and you can see at the bottom we've got the appearance of the Frightful Four. We've got the Wizard, we've got Trapster there, we've got Sandman, and Medusa of the Inhumans, who at the time had amnesia, hence her being a villain here. This is an interesting issue in the sense that this is actually the first 3-arc storyline in FF history, so that's quite an interesting little tidbit of information. Issue number 41. Moving on to issue number 47, we've got, although you can't see from it on the cover, this is more from the Inhumans, and if I'm right, and I think I am, this is actually the first appearance of Maximus, the mad brother of Black Bolt, but another great Stan Lee and Jack Kirby Fantastic Four. Love this cover, the kind of border with all the heads around it, used a great deal later on in the 80s and 90s. This is issue number 54, and it's just one of those covers that you're just kind of drawn into, with all your heroes. There's the Inhumans, and we've got a flaming, flying, fighting mad Human Torch. Very nice condition, that one, actually. Moving on to issue 61, featuring what is largely known as a Spider-Man villain. It's Sandman. So I always used to think when I picked these up, it was quite strange to see him being the villain in another kind of comic book characters groups comic, but this was great. We've got Peter and MJ making a cameo in here too. Issue 61. Issue number 64, first appearance of Sentry. This is another great kind of cover from Jack Kirby. Just that kind of that back silhouette sort of the Sentry. Another great book, 64. Moving on a little bit, we're up to issue 75. Obviously you can see there it's Galactus involved with a little bit of Silver Surfer, and we have them going into the microverse and everyone's favourite kind of floating heads job going on there. Issue number 78. This is one of those times when Reed manages to kind of revert the Thing's status back to his kind of like human Ben Grimm side, but as always with these, it's kind of careful what you wish for. I will make these little dints here, ripped bits. I may have a confession to make. That was me. It was that dreaded taking them out the bags and them accidentally getting caught on the sellotape. I know, a rookie mistake which I never make again. Moving on, issue number 79. This is the first appearance of Android Man, a creation of the Mad Thinker, another one of Fantastic Four's enduring villains, but another great cover there. Number 80, a little run going on here. This is actually the first issue, I believe, of Fantastic Four where Sue Storm doesn't actually appear pregnant for quite some time. Finally, and we've got a guest star from Wyatt Wingfoot, the kind of family of Fantastic Four kind of starting to grow bigger and more characters coming into the FF universe. But another great one. Issue 83. Another great cover. See there, the humans are involved. We've got Black Bolt there, Medusa. I think that's Karnak. Just another great Fantastic Four, early 60s. Finally, an issue with the dawn of FF villains. It's finally time for Doctor Doom in issue 84 as the Fantastic Four sneak into Latveria and find things aren't quite as they thought, but obviously undercurrents of evilness because it's a town that Doom rules over. Moving on to 85, you see they've now been caught by Doom. It's within this tortured land. Another great FF there. And moving on to issue 87, the last part of this kind of Latveria storyline and them getting out. I'm trying to remember, it's been a long time since I've read this, but possibly the most offbeat ending of the year. What is offbeat? I'm not quite sure what that means. But you may see this occasionally, and I've spoken about it on Twitter before. This is a British variant, I suppose you'd call it, with the British price on rather than the American cent. So that was, I don't know, is that 1 shilling? It's old money, Moving on to issue 88, and it says featuring the surprise supervillain of the year at the bottom. That surprise supervillain was Mole Man. He was back. We've got Crystal of the Inhumans being part of the Fantastic Four now, which we see coming and going throughout the 60s and 70s basically. On to issue number 90. Another one that's kind of beat up. It's got a lot of stress marks and bend marks in there. This is... What was this about? Oh, it's the Thing getting caught by the Skrull. And taken to this planet in issue 91, which is kind of... it's this kind of 1930s mobster culture planet where everyone thinks they're in a mob, and obviously the Thing enslaved. And finally for the 60s, it's issue 92, which continues from the previous issue, and it has kind of Ben Grimm getting into all these battles, kind of like not a boxing ring if I remember rightly, but they're kind of fights that all these mobsters bet on, and great 60s stuff. So we move into the 70s, and this is my first issue released in the 70s. You'll see soon that they change the font for the title page, and I'm not a big fan. You'll see that as we go along. This is the first issue of my 70s run that doesn't have Kirby doing the art in this. We've got John Buscema doing the cover and the interior, and Stan Lee still holding on for dear life on one of his clearly favourite comics, but getting a hand from Archie Goodwin. This is his final issue, writing good old Stan. Jumping, oh no, actually, issue 115. These stories that kind of crept up over and over again, where one or the other of the Fantastic Four looked as if they were turning against the rest of the team. This time it looks like it's Reed. He's in the power of the Overmind. Another great book. Jumping ahead, and as you can see, the font changes. I wasn't a huge fan of this new one. Fortunately, it does revert back later on. This is issue 137. We've got Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway on this now. 141. This is another of those times where the Fantastic Four split up. Recurring storyline throughout FF history, really, if you read a lot of their stuff. But we always know they're going to get back together. They're going to team up. Jumping on 142, recent addition to my collection, with the coming of Darkoth, the Death Demon. Just another great Fantastic Four. Issue 151. This was the first appearance of Machismo, the Nuclear Man. We've got Rich Buckler on art for this one. Guest appearances from Thundra and Lightning. Issue 153. Tony Isabella writing duties, finishing off this Machismo storyline. It's another one. I think this is the last time we ever saw Machismo. He might have popped up again for a brief time, but not one of the big villains for the Fantastic Four. Issue 158, we got Roy Thomas writing the storyline now with the macabre menace of Zemu the Merciless, invaders of the 5th dimension. So we've got Quicksilver getting in on the action now. Sue Storm taking a back seat as well, so we bring in Medusa. Issue 169, and we're getting close to the font that we saw at the beginning of the 70s, but not the original ones that we love. Thing is back, or about to be back, as Ben Grimm again, and we get the first appearance of the Thing's exoskeleton in here. We've got Power Man, very popular obviously at the moment, there, and that age-old question, is this the finish of the Fantastic Four? Well, no, because there were hundreds of issues to go afterwards. Issue 171, fans of Gorillas. It's Gore the Golden Gorilla, first appearance. We've got George Perez helping out Rich Buckler on here, and it did kind of have that hole, and you can see from the cover it's got Sue Storm in its grip, bounding over skyscrapers, so it's kind of got that King Kong kind of flavour to it. 10p on there, ugh, don't like it. Turn that over. Then issue 172, a Kirby cover. Kirby comes back. We've got Bill Manto writing with George Perez doing the interior art, and we've got the Destroyer having travelled 200 miles. We've got issue 174, Roy Thomas writing with John Buscema on art, and we've had a lot of these characters kind of losing their powers throughout the run. This time it was Reed's turn, having lost it, so feeling quite worthless, not part of the team. Issue 177. We have, what have we got here? We got Roy Thomas and Mike Friedrich doing this with George Perez, and he's back on art, but so is Art Frightful 4. This time, no Medusa, we've got Brute instead, with first appearances from the Texas Twister and Captain Ultra. Moving on a bit for 183, great cover, action-packed. As it says, this one has it all. And it's also got a lot of writers on here. We've got Bill Mantlo, Len Wein, James Shooter, Roger Stern, Ralph Macchio, and Roger Silver helping out here. And it's also full of villains. We've got Annihilus there, we've got Brute, we've got the Mad Thinker in there somewhere, Scavenger and the Borers. They're all in there. It's a big action pack, as you can see from the cover. This was a time when covers looked like what was going to happen in the inside. Twist that round. We've got 184 this time. Less writers, just little old Len Wein on his own. Perez on the artwork. And this is the one and only appearance of the Eliminator. So clearly not that great a villain. Or maybe not that popular. Issue 185, we've got Agatha Harkness and Franklin having been kidnapped by these new Salem witches. We got the first appearance of Nicholas Scratch, son of Agatha, which makes it all the more devious. Another great issue. Fortunately, a lot of pence variants in my 70s run. Jump a little bit to issue 191. Another FF breaking up and leaving, but it's a good cover. It's a good cover. Issue 196. Another recent addition. This is the Invincible Man. He's kind of doing all these. I don't know if it's real. I'm trying to remember what it was, but they are kind of living their nightmares. I think that's what it was. It's not real, but they are kind of living their worst nightmares, the things that can happen. So we have like the Thing having Alicia, his girlfriend, see him for the first time and realise, yes, he is an absolute horrific monster. Issue 197, we got Marv Wolfman and Keith Pollard. Also the return of the Red Ghost, one of Fantastic Four's earlier villains, and we also see the return finally of Reed Richards' superpowers. He can now be elastic and stretch again. 198, another good Doom story where they're back in Latveria, having been caught by him. It all gets a little bit complicated around this time, as it brings in the son of Doctor Doom. I have two, I don't know why, but I have two copies of this. Must have accidentally picked one up at the time. Issue 201, Another great cover which shows, you know, all the characters being basically knocked out one by one. You know, the foam snuffs the flame, Spore X kills, gravity goes wild, and lasers lash out. Just another action-packed comic. Issue 202, and yes, you can see him. It's Iron Man. He's there helping out the Fantastic Four on what looks like Rhino, but I don't think it actually is. No, it's Quasimodo, that poor misunderstood man. And almost, I think, yes, almost finally for my 70s run, it's issue number 203, and we've got these evil doppelgangers of the Fantastic Four. This is by William Evans Jr., who was a mutant who was able to create these. And finally, issue 208, Sphinx, who does kind of crop up now and again within the Fantastic Four, but he now has the power. He possesses it, and nothing can stop you. But I reckon the Fantastic Four probably can. From 1979, issue 208. That's the last of my 70s comics. Tune in very soon where I'll go through my 80s, because that's the big... The 80s and 90s are quite big, and I might have to even split that up as well. I've got so many of these. Hope you enjoyed this, looking at my back issues of one of the collections I'm currently trying to get all of. But if you like this, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe, let me know in the comment section what your favourite storyline is, what your favourite covers are from the Fantastic Four run I've just shown. Bye bye.